Okay, so a few of you mentioned a few concerns about looking at cognitive psychology in the assessment tomorrow. So I thought I'd go over it really quickly, put it on the YouTube channel, and share it with you. So if we get straight into it. So refreshing your memory a little bit of the AO1, which I know wasn't people's concern so much, but just to make you aware, the kind of things I would want to see you talking about, you won't be getting a 12-mark question on the cognitive approach. But you may be asked, I can't remember, I haven't looked at the assessment properly, but I can't remember, you may be asked some of the stuff about AO1 and definitely some AO3 stuff as well. So it's really useful to be aware of that for your immediate assessment, but also, of course, the one in the summer, which you're going to do very well in. So first thing you'd be able to want to mention is about internal mental processes, which you all know about. So it's the idea, the inner workings of the mind. The way that you would want to explain it is that cognitive psychologists want to look into our internal mental processes, which is the way that we think, essentially. So all thought processes are internal mental thought processes. Inference is a particularly important key term, which I would highly recommend that you remember and look closely at. So if you have to infer something, it means we cannot directly study it. We can't, as we said, we all talked about, you can't crack somebody's head open and watch the way their brain works. Even with brain scans, it's not fully correct. So particularly in the 1960s when this first was developed, cognitive psychology was all based on the idea of inference or inferring things. So we can't directly study it, so we need to make assumptions about it. So because we see this behaviour, we can assume, we can infer that this was the thought process that happened. Thought processes aren't physical things that we can study. So we just have to, because of the observable behaviour we see, draw inferences and assumptions on what the internal mental processes were. The next one. Ooh, there we go. Schema, so mental cognitive frameworks that help us organise and interpret information. And you can talk to me about that. You can give me some examples, and if you can see up here, I don't know if I'm recording the mouse or not, the clicker, but you've got the example of a sports car and then the schema from that, so all the different things that we would link in. And of course, the more people know about sports cars, the more detailed the schema would be. And we also have schema that helps understand the way that we behave, and they're all very carefully interlocked. So if you look at your textbook at this, the example of a schema, I think it might be an egg. If you think about all the huge different things, so immediately there's eating it, there's animals that lay eggs, etc., etc. Which one's it most linked to? What's the texture? What's the taste? All those different things, the inside of the egg, the outside, etc., etc. So schema is just like, if you think about it like a folder in a computer, it helps us structure and understand information. So I was able to find this PowerPoint by opening up my work document first of all, and then going into year one, so AS, and then going into all the approaches, and then going into cognitive psychology. So it's always kind of filtering that information down. It's useful to mention that we were born with innate schema. So innate means you're born with these certain schemas, and it's sucking and grasping. So things that help us cling to the whoever's looking after us, and also feed us as well. So the basic schema that keeps us alive, and then after that we go on to develop infinitely more complex schema as we grow and learn. And of course, you know, it's all about social behaviours as well. So how should you behave in different social settings? I think we looked at a job interview, and we also looked at was it a restaurant we talked about, maybe? There are theoretical models, so hopefully you all know about the ABC model, and there's an image there of it: activating event, belief, and consequence. So theoretical models, again, much like internal mental processes, you can't directly see a model. You wouldn't see an A suddenly appear when it was an activating event, a B when it was a belief, and a C when it was consequence. But they are models, theoretical models, that kind of allow us to understand behaviours, internal mental process, whatever we see. Same with computational models or computation models. They are based on models, so they are generally a lot of models are theoretical and computational. So the multi-store model is theoretical because you can't really crack your head open and see the multi-store model, and it's also computational. So you think about all the different terms that we use. We talk about encoding information and retrieval of information and storage of information, all words similar to what you would use, capacity, and similar to what you would use when talking about a computer. In the 1960s, computers had just started to be developed quite significantly, and if people were using them to kind of help support explain human behaviour, which is quite a new and quite interesting concept. And then of course we've got the emergence of cognitive neuroscience. So we talked about Gage, we talked about Tan. Beforehand we had to wait for them to die, we had to crack their head open and look at them directly, so conduct autopsies. However, now we can do lots of different brain scanning techniques that allow us to study abnormalities in brain structure, but also the benefit is that we don't need to wait for someone to die. So we can study their active brain when they are alive. So we weren't just looking at the structures of the brain, but we could also look at how people's brains activate in different ways depending on sort of different responses they gave. So you know all about those, and there was one about the super fans as well, who loved the fan who loved Apple. The same parts of the brain were activated in people who held religious beliefs as somebody who was a fan of Apple when they looked at Apple products, which was quite interesting, I thought. Strengths then. So evaluation points. You were given a strength of the cognitive approach is the research methods it employs are scientific and objective. Well, we've just spoken about brain scans and we've just spoken about the multi-store model. So already we know brain scans is one, and if you think about memory and how information was collected, what kind of methods they used brain scans, and they also used lab studies. Of course, as you know, what kind of strengths are there from brain scans and lab studies? The best one is that they're able to demonstrate cause and effect by removing experimental bias. So we use the term objective at the top, and then we explain. So it removes bias, which is an extraneous variable, so we can be more confident of cause and effect, increasing the validity of any conclusions drawn and any theories, particularly the cognitive approach, developed. So that would be one that you talk about. This is a really nice easy one. If you just stop for a moment, don't panic in your exam and think carefully. So here, this third bullet point could be as detailed as you want. You know about cause and effect, you know about experimental bias, extraneous variables, validity, all of that terminology I'd like to see in there, and anything additional that you can think of. So they're quite easy to replicate, brain scans and lab studies. So does that allow us to check them for reliability as well, etc., etc. There's loads of different things you could talk about. Some of the problems. Another strength is it has real-world applications. I don't know why that says weakness at the top. It is not a weakness. Let me just change that 1 second. Perfect. There we go. Another strength is the cognitive approach has real-world applications, and then you can talk about a multitude of different things for this one. But cognitive behavioural therapy. There's the ABC model, which we looked at, and then you can look at the real-world application or the real-world treatment, which is the DEF. So the D stands for disputing. So the idea that we dispute irrational thoughts, and this is what it says here as well. So rational emotive behavioural therapy, where a client's irrational beliefs are challenged by a cognitive therapist. We will look at this in more detail in psychopathology, so I am trying to make your life as easy as possible by limiting the amount of information you need to be aware of, any new information, but that does then rely on you being able to kind of make links and explain it throughout. So rational emotive therapy, sort of disputing would be another example of this, and the DEF model. So somebody going in to receive treatment for perhaps a mental health condition and saying, oh, everybody hates me, nobody likes me, and then the therapist would be able to dispute. So it's an internal mental process, believing nobody likes you, which then the client could dispute. And also it says irrational belief, so irrational belief as well. We could say, dispute it. Well, didn't your friends come over last night? Aren't your parents looking after you? Kind of pointing out things. It was your birthday the other week and you had, I don't know, 20 people at your party, whatever it might be. So it's challenging those irrational beliefs. These are all internal mental processes. So by being able to have real world applications that are effective, so the theory is used to develop a real world application which then works, then it must be high in validity. Okay, but that's that third bullet point again. For the higher marks, you want to explain that in even more detail. So there's a real world application. If the theory can be applied to the real world and effectively removes irrational beliefs, for example, which it does, CBT is very, very effective alongside drug treatment, but together they're very, very effective. Then it must be valid because it must be explaining the behaviours properly. So if we claim they're due to internal mental processes, we develop something which deals with internal mental processes and then it works, we must know that saying it's due to internal mental processes is correct. If we said it's due to internal mental processes, we changed people's internal mental processes and nothing happened, there wasn't an improvement, then the theory can't be an accurate or a valid one. Okay. And then finally, a weakness of the approach is that of extrapolation, as human beings are different to computers in the way they process things. And there were loads of different examples that people gave, but humans make mistakes. They forget stored information, whereas computers do not. Computers don't have free will. Computers don't experience emotions. Any of those things. There's a huge wealth of reasons why we're very, very different. And then this suggests that the conclusions drawn from computers' informational processing cannot be applied to explain human cognition, reducing the validity of the theory. So you could go into quite a bit of detail there about the idea, much like animals, suffers from extrapolation because humans and computers are very different. So we can't fully apply the internal informational and internal mental processes of a computer to humans and hope to expect them to be fully valid. Okay. That's everything I think for the evaluation points and for the cognitive approach I'd like to point out for you. I am going to email this link to you now, and I really encourage you all to watch it before your assessment tomorrow. It's really, really key, really key that you're aware and comfortable with this information, as I know we didn't go through it in class. However, I know you did all complete it for homework. If you do have any questions about it, I will be trying to keep an eye on my email. And if you wanted to comment on the video itself to ask any questions, other people, and there's a question somebody asks that you might know the answer to, if you want to have a go at answering it, or someone else might be able to answer it, or as I say, and I will try to keep checking this evening. Right, thank you very much. Good luck tomorrow in your exam.